Forum of WZTV Fox 17. And now your host, Dr. James Haney.
Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is Haiti and Somalia. And we're fortunate to have with us Dr. LMadu, an international lawyer and a co-chairman of the Clergy for Laity Concern, as well as an author and columnist for the Metropolitan Times. Dr. LMadu, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. LMadu, I think that you've been involved in a large number of foreign policy issues. You have a diplomatic background, and you've been very concerned about Africa and about the third world and a number of things that are of high significance when we talk about foreign policy today. And I don't think that there's anything more crucial in terms of where we are as a nation dealing with our foreign policy as the issue of Haiti and the issue of Somalia. Let's have you, from your perspective, to give our audience some information about both these countries, both these very small countries, and why we are in the situation we're in today dealing with these countries.
Well, first of all, these problems, didn't start today. They've been there for long. Case number one, Somalia. Everybody knows Somalia is in the Horn of Africa. When you talk of the Horn of Africa, you talk of Ethiopia, talk of Somalia, to a lesser extent, Sudan, and then you have Djibouti, right across. Somalia really is one of the most homogeneous countries in the world, homogeneous in terms of language, ethnicity, and otherwise. Those who inhabit Somalia are called the Afars and Nisars. They have kith and kin in Djibouti, which was called French Somaliland, and then they have kith and kin in southern Ethiopia, which is called the Ogaden. That was why there was a war in 1977 between Somalia and Ethiopia. That was because of what I might call a Somali irredentist ambitions. Somalia wanted to take that part of Ethiopia back into Somalia. Somalia is not really a wealthy country by any measurement. It's one of the 15 poorest countries in the world, according to the World Bank Index, with Haiti, etc., etc. It became independent in 1960 from Italy and Britain. You had the Italian Somaliland, British Somaliland. When it became independent in 1960, both of them were amalgamated, to become one country. The current problem in that country really, politically, actually started, you might say, 1968. That was when the legitimate government president, his name was Ali Shamaki, was assassinated, and Siad Barre came to power in 68. When Siad Barre came to power, the first thing he did was try to introduce, a Marxist state, according to his own definition. He's been a dictator, since then. One of the most ruthless and brutal regimes you ever seen. He was supported at that particular time by the Soviet Union because he wanted, according to socialism and the Cold War problems, with billions of dollars in arms, none in economic aid, to fight, which is one of the problems amongst third world countries. They spend a lot of money buying arms and all the rest. At that particular time, the U.S. was still supporting the government of Emperor Haile Selassie, in Ethiopia. Until 1977, when there was a war between Ethiopia and Somalia. You remember the Ethiopian military government came into being in 1973 after Emperor Haile Selassie was overthrown by a revolutionary government called the DIG in Ethiopia. The DIG in Ethiopia declared itself a Marxist communist regime. Now, when the war started in 77, the Soviet Union was forced to choose sides because Ethiopia was a larger country, a larger market, more strategically important because of two Red Sea ports, Assab and Massawa. The Soviet Union switched sides to support Ethiopia, run away from its original clientele, which was Somalia. The U.S. in turn switched from Ethiopia to support Somalia. So you could see that both superpowers are pouring billions of arms into Somalia. You see, so it's setting the stage of how, people keep asking, how did they get all these guns and all this? I'm setting the stage to see how, all this came into being.
So these guns were actually put there by the Soviet Union or the United States?
Both of them, because when the Soviet Union was in that country, they had an interest in the Red Sea port of Barbara, and the U.S. had an interest in that seaport too. So when the Soviet Union switched sides to Ethiopia, the Americans came in, to help Siad Barre and also to keep an eye on that Red Sea port of Barbara, which the Soviet Union built into a very big installation. Siad Barre was overthrown, sometime in 1991 by a group, two different Somali factions, fighting from the north and in the south. The current strongman in Somalia, General Mohammed Farah Aidid, was really the leader of the rebels, military rebels, who overthrew Siad Barre. And when Siad Barre was overthrown and he went into exile, civil war broke out between the two competing factions. What made this conflict senseless was that the two antagonists in this conflict, Mohammed Farah Aidid and LMadu1, belong to the same clan, the Hawiye clan, and also they belong to the same party, the Somali National Alliance. Okay, you see, so that's in a nutshell how this conflict came about. So really you have a civil war in Somalia between these competing factions for power, and that's where we are today. That's what started the movement into Somalia.
The famine, that created the famine, and of course it was the famine that pushed us in. Or would you say that when you look at our policy in that, U.S. policy in that area, what is United States policy in Somalia now from your perspective?
Well, it's difficult to say. One is that the Cold War is no more. That's number one. So there's no competing factions, internationally, they say war on Somalia. Secondly, Somalia is a poor country, to begin with. So we don't have really much strategic or otherwise interest in that country. And now that is, that the Cold War is over with, you see. So when we went in December, to help the UN, it was actually based on humanitarian concerns. That was the purpose, in order to alleviate the famine and suffering of the Somali people. Of course, there are times famines have always, occurred in Somalia because of the vegetation and geography. But this particular famine was really what you call a human